With presidential campaigning for 2024 in full swing, many have their eyes on the Commonwealth of Virginia's Governor, Glenn Youngkin. Is it time for him to throw his hat in the ring? Is this the answer to the GOP since Donald Trump's been indicted? And what role will education play in this upcoming presidential election? It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric LaVille. Stay tuned as we talk about what's happening in the Commonwealth this week. Welcome back. It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric LaVille. We're so happy that you join us every single Sunday as we broadcast live from the campus of the Norfolk State University from none other than WNSB Hot 91, the soul of VA, for Stay the Water, where we bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to you to discuss issues important to the community. As always, we couldn't do what we do without you, our supporters, supporting us every step of the way. And again, to the Spartan Nation, the greatest alumni, faculty, staff, administrators, and those that love the Spartan Nation, thank you for all that you do to support this institution, Stay the Water, WSB, and the Center for African American Public Policy. And we have with us always our producer, Marvin Folks, also known as DJ Scandalous, which you can hear every Monday through Friday from 2 to 6 p.m. And on Saturday, and yes, Sunday, the hardest working man in radio. Well, we've been doing our series. For those of you that listen to us, we break down our shows by various series. And this series, we're looking at what's happening in the Commonwealth this week. And there's a lot going on in the Commonwealth. Those of you that know, I love this phenomenal state. It is, of course, the most historical state. I believe it has some of the greatest geography, landscapes, history, greatest people, great place for the military. And not only that, but also some great food. Now, of course, I believe the greatest food is in the state of Louisiana, my home state, but I love the food here in the Commonwealth as well. It's truly a melting pot. But there's also another great distinction for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And that is, it's the state that has the most presidents from it. Whether it be one of the greatest presidents as it relates to writing the Declaration of Independence, writing the Bill of Rights and so forth, in Thomas Jefferson, or one of the great architects of our country, or whomever you may deem to be the best president at this point and juncture in our history. But one thing that we do know is that we may have another viable candidate for that office, which we could say hails from the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I'm talking about none other than our current governor, Glenn Youngkin. Now, according to USA Today, big donors leave DeSantis and want Glenn Youngkin to run in 2024. Now, they're looking at, again, according to reports in USA Today, as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign stumbles, high-powered GOP figures are turning their attention to another well-known governor, Glenn Youngkin of Virginia. USA Today goes on to report that Youngkin's approval rating just hit an all-time high, according to a recent poll in which 57% of Virginia voters said that they approved of the governor's job performance. Now, the same survey, according to USA Today, found that Governor DeSantis' popularity had slipped between the start of the year and this summer, with his approval rating dropping 4 points among Florida Republicans and 2 points among all voters in the state of Florida. But this also has another major swing to it, and what is that? The favorability, along with Youngkin's record-breaking fundraising efforts, have upped speculation about a 2024 presidential campaign. And yes, some party leaders are increasingly hopeful. Now, they also note that Youngkin, whose entry into politics was his gubernatorial win in 2021, which we know about very well. We talked about a lot here on the show during that time where he was running against a former governor, McAuliffe, here in the Commonwealth, and ended up winning on an issue that we're going to talk about in the second half of the show of education. Education and the role that parents play in it. Now, we know that for some, there's been an assault on education, higher education, diversity, equity, inclusion, teaching, all of history. But it is an issue that's here to stay and is going to continue to drive voters to the polls. Now, of course, the governor, he said he's honored by the attention, but his current focus, of course, is Virginia and the state's elections this November. And he, quote, "It's really humbling when people talk about 2024 and the national role for me, and I thank them, and I reiterate that I've got a big job to do here in the Commonwealth." I want to break down a little bit of this, and we're going to take a look at this USA Today article where it looks at Youngkin has his support from Trump's cabinet. We're going to look at how various donors are ditching DeSantis, looking at Youngkin, and how other wealthy donors are looking at him, and the implications of the indictment of former President Trump on this election. Now, we know that Governor Glenn Youngkin first entered politics here during the gubernatorial race. Came in as someone who wasn't well known, but he came in as a fresh face, someone who was a successful businessman, and of course, from this area, Virginia Beach, Virginia, here in the Hampton Roads area. And he's someone that kind of put a new look on the face of the GOP, of the Republican Party, in light of the very high level of popularity with former President Donald Trump at that time as he was serving as current president. And it was one issue that really turned this election, and that was education. And he jumped on it, ran with it, and created a platform around it that I think it would definitely work for him by the numbers and the polls, and he rode it right into the gubernatorial mansion. But also, it may be an issue that works for him in this particular race. But we're going to talk about that in the second half. But let's take a look at Ron DeSantis. Governor DeSantis did the same thing as it relates to education, but he took a different turn. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I thought the launch of Ron DeSantis' campaign was just atrocious. And many people do. How it was a big fumble with the new owner of Twitter, Elon Musk. And it was just a conversation, seemed like between two guys fumbling over who can control the remote control to turn the TV on. So it wasn't a good rollout, and it simply has dropped from there. Many persons are running away from him. Many persons are saying this can't be our guy. This can't be our candidate. And not only that, but polls are showing that they do not want a candidate that is going to fight a culture war. Now, when we talk about culture wars, let's take a look at Ron DeSantis' take on education, and we'll look at, of course, Glenn Youngkin's take and his approach to education. Now, Ron DeSantis went full head speed and assault on diversity, equity, and inclusion, to the point where they created a curriculum where now they're teaching in African American history where slaves actually learn some good skills that can help them as they get employed. Now, of course, this is something that received a huge backlash. It's something that's absolutely terrible because at the same time, former enslaved Africans had lived on the continent of Africa for thousands of years, creating and building empires, cultivating crops, and building sophisticated civilizations without slavery. So, it was a huge backlash. So that was a fumble. But even before that, there was an assault against higher education, institutions of higher education, where funding for various programs were going to be cut if they taught diversity, equity, and inclusion or sponsored any programs around diversity, equity, and inclusion. There was a big alarm sounded amongst Divine Nine fraternities and sororities about their activities in Florida, and if that would actually set off this provision to defund higher education at schools because of their activities. So again, that was another big fumble. But so it was fumble after fumble. And of course, his campaign has been sinking like a rock ever since then. And I don't think it'll resurrect itself, even though he's trying to do so. So with that, many people are turning from Ron DeSantis and looking at Glenn Youngkin. As a matter of fact, according to USA Today, Rupert Murdoch and his media empire, of course, we know Rupert Murdoch is the owner of Fox News, and he's hoping for Youngkin run, according to the New York Times report last week Monday, according to the USA Today. Now, it says that the owner of Fox News, he also owns the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post. He's seen to have once supported DeSantis, according to USA Today, as the nominee in 2024. However, that relationship looks to have soured, and Murdoch's outlets have become increasingly critical of the Florida governor late. Now, we all know that Trump, who fell out of Murdoch's favor after 2020 and his campaign boasted about the recent events of the turn of events. So it says, quote, in no certain terms, Rupert Murdoch made clear that Ron DeSantis is his golden boy no longer, the Trump team wrote in a press release. And speaking of additional donors, according to USA Today, wealthy ex-DeSantis donor, billionaire businessman Tom Petterfy has put his wealth and verbal support behind Youngkin, calling him, quote, an ideal candidate, unquote, for the GOP. According to Petterfy, he says, I very much hope that he's going to enter the race. People I speak to are favorably inclined towards him. And if he entered, he thinks that there would be tremendous enthusiasm around him. Also, he added that he does not believe any of the Republican candidates, including former President Donald Trump, will be able to win the general election. Quote, they are, I think, much too extreme. And once a major funder of DeSantis' campaign, he's halted his contributions all the way back in April over issues with the Florida governor's stances on abortion and also book banning. So you see now that not only are media moguls, these multi-billion-dollar businessmen, and are backing away from DeSantis, but they're looking at Glenn Youngkin, our current governor, to throw his hat in the race. But not only that, but according to USA Today, Youngkin also has support from guess who? Trump's cabinet. Wilbur Ross, the former Commerce Secretary to Trump, he's going to host top donors and party leaders at his Hamptons mansion he hosted it this past Friday for a chance to listen to Youngkin talk about how he's going to take over the Virginia legislature. Now, of course, that's another. We had that discussion on State of Ward a couple of weeks ago. But while explicitly not a fundraiser, the event gives key party figures the opportunity to meet the governor and potentially boost Youngkin's national profile. So the Hamptons are popping, not Hampton, Virginia, but the Hamptons, upstate New York, where, of course, while Youngkin is being hosted by this former Commerce Secretary, Wilbur Ross, there's also an African American Film Festival that's taking place as well. So for those of you who have an opportunity to go there or went there and listen to our talk back to certain films and so forth, there's a lot that's happening. That's all based in Virginia. It's all about the Commonwealth of Virginia. So if that's the case, as a matter of fact, NBC News reported that, Thomas Petterfy, he not just said he's going to he backed away from DeSantis, but he put his money where his mouth was. As a matter of fact, NBC News reported that $1 million was wired to Glenn Youngkin's PAC by billionaire Republican mega donor Thomas Petterfy, called Spirit of Virginia. Now, this is his second $1 million donation to the PAC, supporting the governor's political goals. So, again, he is lying behind our current governor. As a matter of fact, Youngkin's PAC has been on a fundraising streak lately, with Virginia governor raising money around the country, visiting Colorado, Texas, Florida, for receptions with these various wealthy donors. As a matter of fact, Virginia, well, let's take a look. His PAC is now raked in $9.5 million since the beginning of the year and has $7.5 million on hand already. Virginia State House Speaker Todd Gilbert, who has served in the General Assembly for 17 years, told NBC News that state Republicans haven't always had strong fundraising numbers from outside Virginia, but with Youngkin, it is different. Quote, we have always struggled to keep up with what the other side seems to do in a year and year out, which is bringing in all out-of-state money from millionaires and billionaires who have nothing to do with Virginia. But we want to change our way of life here. We could not do it without his efforts, meaning the current governor, Glenn Youngkin, period. Quote, Virginia is showing what can be accomplished when you're focused on common sense results. This is from Dave Rexroad, senior advisor to Youngkin, in which he told NBC News. It stayed the water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric LaVille, and with the nomination for the GOP for the presidential election of 2024 in full swing, all eyes are on the Commonwealth of Virginia once again, and it's for none other than our current governor, Glenn Youngkin. Many mega donors, many from Trump's cabinet, many influential persons are pulling away from the second place candidate in Florida Governor DeSantis, and they're keying on the current governor here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Trump, who is the leading candidate, and his current indictment. Now, with this being the case, we have Trump, who is, of course, we know, been indicted on 4 federal charges of corruption and obstruction as it relates to trying to overturn the election of 2020. With that being the case, the question becomes, what will happen? Now, we know we're talking about Glenn Youngkin. DeSantis is sinking like a rock, so he's pretty much not. He's going to become a non-factor if things don't turn. But stranger things have happened. But we also have other candidates who are not polling very high, around 4%, including Tim Scott, Black Republican senator, in the Senate, U.S. Senate, out of South Carolina, and also the former Vice President, Mike Pence, who's been in Congress, of course, served as Vice President, only polling around 4 or 5%. With that being the case, still, after 3 indictments and a 4th one pending in Georgia, former President Donald Trump is currently in the lead, solidly in the lead for the GOP nomination. Matter of fact, he is in the national polls. He is in a dead heat, a dead tie with current President Joe Biden. If the election was held today, the question becomes not if Donald Trump, if he can win or not, but the question would become whether the Democrats can get enough of their voters out in order to stop him from winning, based upon the strong support that he has right now with his own party and also across the board in a general election. So the only thing that we see, according to many legal experts, that would stop Trump from getting the nomination is if he is convicted in this particular case. The one in D.C., where he was indicted just last week and arraigned, that is the serious one. That is the one where, he could get real time. And this is the one that could stop him. Some people are very, they have a lot of apathy toward this because they say, hey, he's gotten away with 2 impeachments. He's gotten away with the J6 hearing. He's gotten away with the Mueller investigation. He's gotten away with a lot. But will this be the one to get him, or the one in Georgia to stop him when he had efforts to overturn the 2020 election? We'll see. But one thing we do know is that the current governor of Virginia, if he gets into the race, he would definitely be the second place, solidly in second place, and of course, gaining steam as it relates to getting the nomination itself. Now, of course, former President Trump he ran on basically making America great again. And there's a faction of voters in the Republican Party that believe that America needs to be made great again. However, polls have shown and voters have shown that there's a large amount of individuals in our country that believe that America is already great. And it doesn't need to be made great again, but we need to continue moving in a positive direction in order for it to continue to be great. So with that message ceasing to resonate across the board, the next message of the GOP is that we have a culture war that we have, and we need to do everything we can to stop everything that we see that's happening from a moral standpoint, according to some in that party. But the majority of voters, including a lot in the GOP, are saying this is not the fight that we want to fight. This is America. You can believe what you want as long as you don't hurt anyone else. You can do what you want. you can say what you want as long as you don't hurt anyone else. And you can live your life the way you want as long as you respect everyone else. So therefore, this is not the fight that they want to fight. So what fight is it? What fight can the GOP campaign on in order to get people to the polls? In order to get individuals excited about putting another Republican in the White House, excited about the key agendas that this president and this party will have for our country for the next 4 to 5 years. What is that message? What is that message that's going to get people to the polls? Well, according to Deseret News, what role they talk about and address what role would parents' rights play in the 2024 presidential election. Now, I've mentioned and we've talked about it on this show how education is at the forefront. As a matter of fact, before this, in the first half of the show, we compared and contrasted how current Governor Ron DeSantis and current Governor Glenn Youngkin are both dealing with education and these issues as a focal point to galvanize voters to the polls and to galvanize their issues, and how one has been successful and the other pretty much has not. And how this would actually play in the larger fray of the election. So what is it? How will this actually become a major issue? Well, during the gubernatorial election, I was adamant, and I stated on this show and also in conversations with candidates and conversations in other pundits. I said the education issue is going to be an issue that's going to play here in Virginia, and it's going to be a national issue. The GOP are going to take that, they're going to package it, and make it one that they can win on. And lo and behold, it is an issue that they have looked at. There's a group of voters, a pocket of voters, of parents. Now, say what you want, but education is the key. Education is the key of how you reach communities, how you reach neighborhoods, how you reach families, how you reach individuals. It is the key. Because education affects all of us. As a matter of fact, according to the article, in June, Republican presidential contenders, both Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, as well as long shots Nikki Haley and Vivek, all attended the Moms for Liberty Summit in Philadelphia. Now, that's a move that suggests, according to the article, the issue of parents' rights could play a central role in the primaries, if not the 2024 general election. Now, what's this group, Moms for Liberty? Moms for Liberty promotes more parental involvement, according to an article, in public education. For Trump and other GOP candidates, seeing these votes draws from the playbook of none other than our governor, Virginia's Governor Glenn Youngkin. How he said Youngkin won the gubernatorial race in 2021 on the parents' rights platform. Now, many of you saw the debate. Many of you saw the highlight. One soundbite from former Governor McAuliffe and one soundbite from now Governor Glenn Youngkin, how it was capitalized upon and ran with, and he ran it straight into the governor's mansion. One soundbite. After that soundbite, a platform was created. The red vests, right? The red vest voters, the picnics, the talk around the campfires. I mean, the knocking on the doors, the walking in neighborhoods. It was parents for Youngkin. Education became a major issue. School board meetings were packed. They were absolutely packed. Now, I'll be very honest with you. I'm a public access TV watcher. I'm a C-SPAN TV watcher. C-SPAN 1, 2, and 3. I love the book review. I love poetry and pose. I love all that. I love the lectures and the conferences that they have that you can play back and watch live. I'm plugged into that. I am a public policy law junkie. That's what I do. But let me tell you, there is nobody that really attends school board meetings. But school board meetings were packed, standing room only, built around this issue of education, issue of parental rights in education, issue of how parents, or should parents, or what role should parents play in their children's education. So according to the article, political analysts disagree on how much parents' rights will figure into the upcoming elections, but across the board, though, they agree that Republicans own the issue and that Democrats, to their own detriment, have dropped the ball on this topic. That statement is illustrated no better than the debate that I'm speaking of, in which this ball was dropped by the former governor and it was picked up like a fumble at the goal line. Sorry, Cleveland Brown fans. Yes, Ernest Biner, fumble on the goal line. You know, Bernie Kosar, you guys could have won. You guys could have went. But you fumble, it was scooped up, and Youngkin, he took it in, right? Same thing. Youngkin scooped up the ball and took it to the other side. Now, it says recently, according to John Valent, the Brookings Institution's senior fellow in government studies and director of the Brown Center on Educational Policy, he said recently, we've seen a one-sided discussion when it comes to schools and education and politics. Republicans have been very eager to engage on these culture war issues, and Democrats have been fairly reluctant to respond. Now, regardless of how the Democrats approach parental rights in 2024, they believe that Republican ownership of the issue represents a historic shift. In the past, education was a winning platform for Democrats. But ironically, some of the policies Democrats championed actually helped to pave the way for the rise of parental rights as an issue that could peel away some voters historically aligned with the party. As a matter of fact, Democrats could yet correct for their silence during 2024 by honing in on the issue of book challenges, often referred to as book bans, but some of a majority of public opposes. And this is according to Michael Petrilli, president of the Thomas B. Fordham Institute on Education Policy think tank. He was also co-author of a book of How to Educate Americans, the Conservative Vision for Tomorrow's Schools. So I want to kind of key in on how this was an issue that Democrats own as opposed to the Republicans. School segregation. Before May 1954, school segregation was constitutional, thereby legal. Once a Brown versus Board of Education was decided, the pendulum of legal change swung to the other extreme, and segregation in schools became unconstitutional, thereby became illegal. From that point on, from 1954, even before that time, if we start to talk about segregation and Jim Crow and the fight of it, of course, Oliver Hill and Thurgood Marshall and others, the heads of the fight to desegregate America. If we look at it from the pre-1950s, 1954, all the way up to 2021 here in Virginia, we see Democrats own that issue. However, in 2024, if this holds, Republicans may have captured the education issue and ride it all the way to the White House and other elections. But we'll wait and see. As always, listen, I love when you join us. I love when you engage us, because here on Stay the Water, we bring nothing but movers, shakers, and policymakers to you as we discuss important issues to the community. Join us every week and continue to support us. As always, God bless, be great, and we'll see you next week.